People of Reddit, what do you swear you saw, but don't have any proof of? Story 1. A lion at my parents' house when I was a kid. My older brother saw it too. Coincidentally, a lion went missing from a zoo in Ohio around that time and was never found. My brother and I swore we saw it but obviously had no proof. That winter, my parents found giant paw prints outside that definitely were not a dog, cat, coyote, etc. Years later when I was a freshman in high school, my friend's mom was driving me home and swore she saw a lion run across the road my parents live on. She never even knew the story about me swearing there was a lion out there. She was so convinced that she immediately called the police. That was all the proof I needed to know I was never crazy and know what I saw as a kid. Edit. It was 2004 to 2006 or so when my brother and I saw it, so prior to the 2011 Zanesville, Ohio incident. The spotting by my mom's friend was around 2012. Story 2. When I was 13 my grandfather hung himself. He was a stoic old man who lived in rural Ireland. My family lived in the suburbs outside of Boston, Massachusetts. My mother was in pieces. She went to Ireland for the funeral and when she came home, she cried herself to sleep every night. One night I'm up late getting myself a snack from the kitchen. I took my snack to go back to my bedroom and I saw him. My grandfather, just like I remembered, was slowly ambling up the stairs. I just stood there in silent disbelief. I've seen what people would consider ghosts, but the human mind is a weird thing, and I won't act like I'm any less prone to hallucinations than anyone else. But the next morning I sat down with my mom to have breakfast. She was quiet that morning and then said, "You know I've been crying myself to sleep since I came back from Ireland? Last night I was crying, and I felt the sheets get tucked in behind me just like my daddy used to do when I was a little girl. I reached behind me, but I couldn't feel anything. Your father wasn't home yet, so it wasn't him." Then I fell into the most peaceful sleep I've had in ages. Her bedroom was at the very top of the stairs. I wasn't sure if I should tell her that I had seen her father the night before. I didn't know how it might impact her. I kept it to myself until years later when she retold that story. When she heard my side, she wasn't even surprised. She just said, "I believe you. You wouldn't believe the things I've seen." Story 3. My best friend died almost a decade ago now. Fuck, I miss her. Without knowing it, I cooked her last dinner and said my last goodbye. I went home to get some sleep. At 2:01 a.m., I felt something wake me up. I opened my eyes and for just a few seconds, I saw a gray, not black, blob-like one-dimensional shadow moving across the ceiling. The shadow wouldn't make any sense with the angles of the windows and the streetlights. I lived in that house for many years and never saw a shadow move like that. I had two perpendicular beams on my ceiling intersecting at the center of my ceiling. The shadow crossed over the two beams without hugging the vertical faces of the wood. It was as if the shadow was floating through the air like smoke. It wasn't smoke, as there was no smell. No candles in my room either. And then it was gone. Trying to figure out what I saw, it took me a while to fall back to sleep. The next morning, I got the call that my best friend died at 1:35 a.m., 26 minutes before something woke me up. To this day, I am convinced I saw her soul floating above me, somehow saying goodbye. I have no idea if I'm correct, but that's how I feel. I'm not a religious person. I believe in science, but I can't ignore that night's experience. I know science will figure it out one day. I miss you. I think about you every day. Story 4. A possessed house or whatever. Worked for the local utilities reading water meters while in school. Old ass house. Was used as a makeshift hospital during the Civil War. The meter was all the way in the back, and they had apparently redid the basement so there were new concrete walls, but the original stone foundation was still there. Sort of like a maze. Went in and read the meter, took a wrong turn, and got lost. Kind of panicked and got lost again. It was only a handful of walls because they wanted a game room and bar. Calmed down, found the meter again, followed the walls, and after a couple of minutes, found the exit outside. The dude I was with asked what the hell happened and told him I got lost but not a big deal. He asked how I got lost. Told him, the new walls. He asked what walls. Looked back inside and there wasn't any walls. Just a dark big-ass basement. Apparently, I was in there for like an hour. He came in after catching up to get his lighter, never saw me, walked back out, and kept on reading meters for an hour before he saw me coming back out. He assumed I walked upstairs and was talking to the guy who owned it. And he'd catch me at the end of the street. I know I saw walls. I know I got lost. And it sure as fuck wasn't no hour. Edit, for those wondering, here's a link to the house on Zillow. The house was getting remodeled in the early 90s and the owner sold it a few years later when he went bankrupt. It's changed hands I think multiple times according to some people I know who still live there. It's finally getting some attention to be remodeled. It belonged to a surgeon or doctor who bought it from a reverend who was rumored to be into some dark stuff. According to some newspaper clippings, the basement was used as a makeshift morgue and the rooms upstairs were used as operating rooms during the Civil War. That must have been really unnerving. I wonder if he accidentally went into a house next door and just got turned around? I don't really believe in the supernatural but something about this story bugs me. Story 5. I used to be able to consciously levitate in my very vivid dreams. In my dreams, the power to fly would wane and gain, come and go. It required hard concentration to stay airborne. Super vivid, amazing reality that I loved. I knew I was dreaming but could control my flight. I had a dream at 16 years old. I was especially buoyant and decided to fly around my old neighborhood. I remembered the flight path and a blue roof that I didn't think was blue. I went to the house to check later, and the roof wasn't blue. I was bummed that it was just a dream and not real. I didn't leave my body, like it felt. The flying dreams stopped eventually. 8 years later, I was on a Forest Service helitack crew and dispatched to a lightning strike in my neighborhood. As we were flying over the area, I went into shock as the pilot followed the exact same flight path as my dream. I predicted the turns in the air, and as I looked down, the fucking roof was blue. Story 6. That I talked to my dead mother on the phone 3 weeks after she died. My mom passed away January 2021. I flew from Florida to Kansas City for the funeral with my husband and daughter. We attended the services, closed out her estate, and returned home. About 3 weeks later, I'm lying in my bed, and my phone rings. I was awake when the phone rang. I had been lying there debating getting out of bed or just lying there feeling sorry for myself, but I was wide awake. I sat up in my bed to look at my phone. I don't remember what the caller ID showed. But I answered. My mom had a very distinctive way of answering the phone when she was calling someone. "Well, hi there. Chuckle, did I wake you up?" That was exactly what she said. I just sat there holding the phone for a minute and then said "Mom?" And then there was a click of a phone turning off and the universe resetting itself. My mom was dead. I attended her funeral. I saw her in the casket. My mom also called me at some point after she died. Her phone was not in the possession of my brother, my aunt, or mom's boyfriend, the 3 people who were closest to her and would have received the phone. None of them would have played a joke like that. I'm not even sure where her phone went after she passed. Story 7. It was Wednesday, November 21, 1984. My family of 4 was in our car on our way to visit relatives for Thanksgiving. My father was driving, my mother was in the passenger side, my brother and I were in the back seat, I on the left and he on the right. It was just about dusk and we were northbound on Highway 259. North of I-30 and south of Dalby Springs, Texas. In that area, 2-lane 259 passes through the lowland floodplain of the Sulphur River. The setting sun was shining through the trees. My dad shouted "Look!" and pointed into the thicket on the left, west side of the car. We looked and saw a very hairy creature moving fast, on 2 feet, standing erect, northwest away from the road. Its hair was very dark brown and appeared coarse and thick. It was 20 feet off the road when we first saw it, so maybe 35 to 50 feet from our car given the southbound lane was between our car and the brush/woods. My dad and I saw it best, my brother also caught a glimpse. But my mom missed it. Dad immediately stopped the car. But by the time he did, it was gone. We believe what we saw was the Fouke or Boggy Creek monster. Story 8. I live in South Alabama. On a drive late at night to my parents' house in rural Mississippi on a bunch of backroads, I saw what is colloquially known as a black panther. Yes, I know these are just melanistic jaguars or leopards and neither exist in the US anymore, but panthers are also known as cougars, pumas, mountain lions, bobcats, etc. and those are still in the US, but not in South Alabama. I know what I saw. I have a bachelor's degree in biology. This was not a house cat, and it was not a dog or any other domestic animal. It was, best as I can describe it, a black panther. Edit, I hit the wrong button and submitted it too quickly. Anyway, this animal was stalking in the high grass on the side of the road. As this was a back road with lots of curves and no lighting, I was only going about 30 miles per hour when I first saw it in the grass. I slowed way down and watched as it kept slinking through the grass until it came upon a clearing. I saw it plain as day. Story 9. Not so much saw I as experienced. but I hit a racquetball in such a way that it phased through a wall and or possibly entered another dimension. I was bored. Waiting for my dad to finish up work one weekend. He gave me his racquetball racket and a ball and let me into the court. I was maybe 16 at the time, I think. I had no idea how to play, and it turns out it takes a bit of skill to hit the ball multiple times repeatedly off the back wall, and I wasn't that into it. So instead, I thought I'd see how many walls I can bounce it off of in my strongest hit. I wound up and slammed the ball as hard as I could. I totally overcommitted and was facing the floor when I finished my swing. I'm pretty sure I heard it hit 2 walls. And then nothing. Mind you, I'm in a white cube of a room. There's a door with a little glass window in it. And a vent in the ceiling with a grate over it. And then there is me with a racket in my hand. But no racquetball anywhere to be found. Since then, I have been convinced there's another dimension just below our own where lost items can accidentally find themselves when they slip past the boundaries of this one. It's filled with lost socks, keys, nail clippers, 10mm sockets, etc., and my dad's racquetball. So that's where my 10mm keep going. This story made me envision a backroom-style place with an F-35 sitting on top of a pile of sockets. Story 10. In roughly 2003 we'd been drinking and stupidly decided to pile into 2 cars to go to the taco place a couple of miles away. The 2 drivers decided to race. We're going like 80 in a 35 and when we get to the train tracks, my car of people is looking at the other and we see this incredibly ethereal train. It missed the other car by just a foot or two. No stopping signal, no gate, just this almost glowing train, silent. Fogless night too, not that we ever get fog in Vegas. Everyone in the car was like, oh holy shit, holy fuck, oh my god, we almost died, and both cars stopped racing. We pulled up to the taco place and everyone else in the other car had seen it too. For 2 carfuls of people to have witnessed the same thing, agree about exactly what we saw, and all be incredibly shook was obviously rare. We ate pretty quietly and went back home at normal speed, looking to see if maybe there was a train on the tracks stopped. Nothing. We've called it the ghost train to this day. Story 11. I drove through a town that didn't exist. Small town, maybe 500 people? It was Highway 412 just east of Gladstone, New Mexico. Which, if you look at a map, there's absolutely nothing there and never was. But I saw it. It had a grocery store, a DQ, an H&R Block, some houses, and a gas station. And there were people walking around. I didn't think anything of it until I realized I had this weird gut feeling. It was like I couldn't breathe and no one could see me. Like I disappeared. And I had this feeling of dread, and there were no other cars on the road but me. When I got through the town, it all went away, like a switch flipped. And I couldn't find it on a map, no one knew what I was talking about. Today I still wonder if my mind was just playing tricks on me. Story 12. I saw a man move a metal spoon with his mind. Let me add some context. I'm about as literal and matter-of-fact as it gets. I work in finance. I think everything is bullshit unless I see the research myself. I grew up poor, so I don't have any patience for stupid sayings like follow your heart or everything happens for a reason. I call bullshit when I see it, and probably get some kind of satisfaction out of that. I learn a lot of lessons the hard way, but for better or worse I think for my damn self. I was 19 and living in this guy's house during my first year in college. I played basketball in Monterey, California. He was a little weird, older, but in incredible shape. I got somewhat weird feelings in the house, but it seemed fine. One day he asked me if he has ever shown me the spoon thing. What? He proceeds to put a spoon on the table and focus on it while looking at it. He's really focusing on it and doing something because he's grimacing and grunting a bit. Then all of a sudden, the spoon starts to rotate clockwise. It did a full revolution. I checked the table. For magnets. For something. I checked the spoon. Nothing. So I went and got another spoon fresh out of the silverware drawer. Do it again. He does it again. The spoon was spinning. I almost forget about it, but every once in a while, something makes me remember. People usually don't believe it, but it fucking happened. Right before my eyes. I was going to say that it was a string or magnet or something like that, but getting a different spoon and the guy still being able to do that is crazy. I wonder if it would work with other silverware too or if it was just spoons. That's all for now, enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you in the next one.